The date is July 15th, 2002. My name is Ann Dinny, and I'm interviewing Tom Hendricks of Nederland. At the present, we are in the machine shop at Tom's Cross Gold Mine.
Yep.
Tom, I'm curious, are you originally from Colorado?
Well, I'm a native from Colorado Springs, and I grew up in Colorado Springs and went to Palmer High School and played hockey down there for most of my youth, and actually got interested in gold mining by spending a lot of time in the Cripple Creek area. And I actually worked for Gold and Cycle Mining in Cripple Creek in 1967.
Really? Was that your first job as
in gold mining,
in
yeah.
gold mining?
Prior to that, I had worked for my father in his limestone mines on Rampart Range down in Colorado Springs. He had underground limestone mines and a processing plant. So I actually started working in the mines at age 11.
Tell me the difference between the types of mining you did then and what you're doing now.
Well, the limestone mining, we were mining big flat beds of limestone that laid horizontal into the earth. And here we're mining veins that are vertical for the most part. And there we use large vehicle type equipment, where here we use track equipment and jackleg drills, and it's a very different kind of mining.
Why were you so attracted to mineral mining?
Well, all through high school and in college, I did all my research on the history of Colorado mining and mining itself, mining families, the mining towns. I spent a lot of time growing up. Luckily, I had a family where we camped out a lot when we were young kids in the gold mining towns, everywhere from Cripple Creek, Telluride, Leadville, Lake City, and even up in this area we used to come up here.
Did you ever imagine that you would one day own a gold mine?
Well, somebody told me at one of my high school reunions that I wrote something in a yearbook that I would be owning and operating a gold mine, so it must go back a long ways, so yeah.
Well, what is your education in?
Well, I played hockey right through college, and I ended up going to Minnesota for 1 year to study geology and play ice hockey. And then I got homesick for Colorado, so I came to Boulder and attended the University of Colorado for 3 years. And actually became the captain of the CU hockey team in 1970 and 71. But I was mining my way through the University of Colorado, and I worked for 4 different mines in Boulder County while I was going to school at CU.
Which ones?
Well, the first one was the Good Hope mine, which is just east of Ward near Gold Lake. And I drove a 300-foot tunnel on a scheelite tungsten vein. And we hand sorted the ore and pushed all the cars by hand. And it was a tiny little historic type mining operation. And then I worked at the andesite rock quarry up in Lyons for 1.5 years. And I worked at the Comstock mine, and then I started this operation in the early 70s.
It says 74 on the front of this building.
That's the year I incorporated. I went to work up here 31 years ago in May of 1971. And my first job was a shaft sinking project at the Comstock silver mine up on top of Caribou Hill. And I told the owner, Richard Sigismund in Boulder, Richard's a man who on 9th Street has all those beautiful flowers in his yard. I told him if I'd go to work for him, if I could get a lease on the cabins here at the Cross Mine. And in 1971, I met the owners from California, and they said, well, we'd love to have somebody in the cabins upkeeping them and maintenance them and watching over the Cross Mine. So they let me live here while I was working at the Comstock mine.
Where is the Comstock mine?
It's a property we own, and it's up on the very top of Caribou Hill. It has the metal head frame.
Was this the Cross Mine operating while you were living here?
Oh, no. The Cross Mine operated in the 1870s, the 1880s, and then a California family financed the operation in the 1920s and 30s. And you probably remember a county commissioner by the name of George W. Teal. His son, George H. Teal, and George W. actually operated this mine during the 1930s. And they lost it to the California man, And then the War Closure Act came and the mine was closed, so it was inactive from 1939 until I started working here in the early 70s.
Was it a profitable mine up to that point in the 30s?
It was. They were developing ore, and they applied for a loan from the Reconstruction Finance Committee, which was helping to finance mines at that time, to build a new mill here, but they never did build a mill.
Are there any minerals that you're coming across besides gold?
Well, we've mined a considerable amount of gold, silver, lead, zinc, and copper.
From this mine?
Oh yeah, and we make when we used to operate the mill in Boulder, we would make a bulk concentrate, and that would get shipped to the smelter up in British Columbia, and they would pay us for all of those various metals.
What was the process of shipping ore that far away? How did you do that?
Well, you know the Keeter family out at Valmont. The Keeters hauled all of my ore from the mine to our mill in Boulder. And then it took 25 tons of ore to make a ton of concentrate. But the concentrate, which looks like this, had 25 times more gold, silver, lead, zinc, and copper in it. So we could afford to ship this anywhere in the world.
And so you made the concentrate at the mill in Boulder.
And then it was shipped by truck to the smelter up in British Columbia.
Now that is on Valmont Butte, that mill?
Yes.
Is that right?
That mill was built in 1935 by Doc Zangier and the Grand Republic Gold Mine, which operated up on Logan Mill Run, up 4 Mile. And then they built that mill in 1935. In 1940, Allied Chemical Company opened the Burlington fluorspar mine in Jamestown. And they reconditioned that mill to handle fluorspar ore. And they actually ran 200 tons a day of fluorspar ore through that mill until 1973. We acquired the mill through a lease in 1976, and I had 3 months and $30,000 to go down there and clean the whole mess up, convert the mill to a gold circuit, and be up and running. And we were up and running.
Is it running today?
Oh no, we actually haven't milled anything there since 1985, and the owner, we got in a dispute with the owner. He wanted us to buy it for $3 million. We had already paid him $1 million in lease payments, and we just couldn't afford a $3 million purchase price. He ended up selling it for considerably less to a man in Boulder. The man in Boulder in recent years sold it to the city of Boulder. So they own the mill and all the property, and they're building a fire training center out there as soon as they get permitted. Yeah.
Are you the only active mine in Boulder County now?
Well, as far as I know, environmental laws and permitting laws and all the things that go on today are so complicated and so costly and so almost insurmountable for the small miner that it's made it almost impossible for people to open a mine today. And then if you look at some of our historic mining areas, like Gold Hill and Jamestown and Nederland, Eldora, you've had this influx, this urbanization of the mountains. And people are moving up here to have their little slice of heaven, and they commute to Boulder and they want all the amenities. But the last thing they want in their backyard is a mine. Well, what we've tried to do up here at Caribou is build what we call our own ecological buffer zone. We've tried to acquire all the property around us so that our nearest neighbor is about 4 miles away.
So how much land do you own here?
Well, we've had to sell some of it to the county, but we hold about 420 private acres of surface land, 600 acres of mineral rights, private mineral rights, and then we have staked 2,000 acres of federal claims.
What land have you sold to Boulder County?
Well, I've been a big supporter of the Boulder County Park and Open Space program, and I sold them years ago 165-acre Caribou Flats, which is a great big flat meadow that overlooks Eldora and the Indian Peaks, which is about 2 miles above us. And then I sold them the Red Sign Gold Mine in Boulder Canyon, which is 7 miles from the mouth of Boulder Canyon, a very historic gold mine, by the way. and one other little property right next to Nederland. And then I've helped him with the acquisition of a couple of properties.
Did you assist in their, let's see, the Cardinal Mine is how far from here?
The Cardinal Mine was a big part of our negotiations. We had an option on that property. We had acquired it and lost it to the owners several times. I think my company in the last 30 years has spent $500,000 on the Boulder County mine and the Cardinal Mill site. And then we'd lose it back because we couldn't keep our payments up. So finally, we were in a situation a couple of years ago where we were approached by Lexi Betters, and she had an idea to acquire our options and part of our property. She wanted to restore some of the cabins down there, and Boulder County would come in and pick up the bulk of the surface land. So we were right in the heart of that, and what we got out of it is we gave up options we had on the Boulder County Group A and B, and we took 10 claims up here on Boulder County Hill that are the extension of the vein systems from the old mining days. The county got a bunch of open space at a very good price, and Lexi Betters got the new Cardinal town site. And the Nederland Historical Society is going to have the mill to restore.
Did they decide to do that?
Yes, from what I understand, yeah.
Is that how mining claims are handled nowadays, that it's bargaining and giving and taking of entities to get...
Oh yeah, it's just the only way you're going to exist. Mm-hmm. Yeah. When I came here in 1969 is when I moved in the Nederland area. It was still a ranching and mining community. Even though Boulder was starting to boom with the university and the high-tech industry and all that, the remnants of the 90 or 100-year-old mining and ranching economy in Boulder was still present everywhere. And it's just changed like that with the blink of an eye. Yeah.
As people apply for their little places of heaven, as you call
oh yeah,
it,
right.
that really impacts the mining
oh yeah.
claims.
That's why I support park and open space acquisition of land, because if they're paying a fair price, it eliminates urbanization of the mountains, because that's been happening nonstop now for 30 years.
You served for a while when the county was forming its Historic Preservation Advisory Board.
Right. Yeah.
You no longer sit on that, but you were on that for how many years?
Boy, on that board, I think I was on it for 4 or 5 years maybe, and then I sat on the Mountain County Advisory Board, and then I sat on the mining board where they came up with the new mining laws, and then I've sat on several state boards. In fact, I still sit on, I'm an original member dating back to the 1970s on the Abandoned Mineland Task Force for the state of Colorado.
Now, you said you served on a board for establishing new mine laws. Is that county
yes.
mine laws? There
was kind of a questionable operation in Eldora a few years back, and it stirred up a lot of people. So it pushed a number of groups to make the county come up with their own mining regulations, which we're covered by 7 agencies right now. And it just was another level of bureaucracy for small mining to have to deal with.
What kinds of, you served as the mining representative on as HPAD.
Uh-huh.
What kinds of issues did you deal with? Or
well, the county was quite interested in preserving some of the old mine structures, like head frames and mills and things that were reminiscent of our mining past of 100 years ago. And so what you had are people who were wanting to develop mine sites for homes, convert mills to homes, build homes near mines. And I think there was a real effort by the county to help try to preserve these areas for future generations.
The Cardinal Mine, do you envision that as actually being open to the public for as a
I would hope so. Yeah, if you look at pictures of the Cardinal Mine, mill, and town site, especially when the Switzerland Trail, when the railroad accessed the mill and so forth, that was a booming town. And the Boulder County gold mine was one of the longest continually producing gold mines in Boulder County history.
You mentioned Caribou Flats. Now, where was the town of Caribou?
The town of Caribou is right above the Cross Mine. And it was developed in 1869 after Sam Conger made the original silver discovery. At one point, there were 800 people living in Caribou. It was one of the true Cornish mining towns in the West. The bulk of the people that lived there were from Cornwall, England. And they were skilled tin miners who came over here to mine narrow, rich veins of silver. And of course, the town burned down 3 times. And after we went off the silver standard in 1893, the 3rd fire pretty well wiped the town out. But the Caribou mine actually kept producing until 1955.
Really?
Oh yeah. It produced 20 million ounces of silver that's recorded. And then the mine laid idle until we reopened it in 1980.
These silver veins of silver then are you don't have that rich of veins of silver on your...
Oh, we do. We when I first came to Caribou, we had here at the Cross Mine, we had 2 veins, 5,000 ounces of gold, and 200,000 ounces of silver that we knew was here. Today, by core drilling and doing extensive geologic work, we have 500,000 ounces of gold and 20 million ounces of silver defined now through core drilling and geologic mapping and underground working. And our next program could quadruple that. So what we're learning about this area is that these veins go to great depth, that there's a certain horizon after you go down vertically where the veins come in very strong. And as you get deeper up here, they turn into gold veins. So we spent $4 million doing nothing but drilling holes down, getting core samples like this, and then analyzing these, putting them into a computer database, sampling them, and storing them.
How deep are your cores?
The deepest core sample that we've ever drilled is 3,000 feet. And we expect to start drilling some holes this year that'll go down to 4,000 feet.
And that's what your shed out here is, you have your core
The Big
samples?
Green building is full of core samples. The building over at the Caribou Mine is full of core samples. And next year we're going to build a new building just to house core samples. The reason we do that is because today, when you drive a tunnel in, even if it's on your patented private property, you have to have a reclamation permit, a water discharge permit. You have to put a cash bond up that says for every pound of ore you bring out, you're going to completely reclaim that. So it costs $250 a foot just to put the tunnel in, a foot, not counting all the environmental and the laws and the permitting and everything. So we can actually set up a core drill, and which is a great big machine, and we actually can drill underground, but we can drill with a diamond core bit like this, and we can drill 300 feet a day, and the hole's perfectly surveyed, so we know right where it's going, and we get a sample back. And the total cost for this, for drilling, permitting, reclamation, geologizing, and assaying, is about $25 a foot. So pretty soon, after you hit enough of these veins in a certain locations, you put them into a 3D modeling program, and you can plot your reserves that way. And then you match it with the gold and silver prices, and you say, in the future, it's going to cost us $25 million to build a new, what we call a new millennium mine that meets all the environmental laws, blends in with the community. And is it economic to do it? Do we have the veins and the gold price and so forth? So
where are you doing this computer modeling? Here?
We do some here, but most of it's done at a company in Denver called MapTech, and they have pioneered the program to do it with. We spent about $150,000 just putting the data into that program. So you could go down there and look at a big screen, and we can show you all of Caribou, Eldora, Nederland, 3-dimensional, just like it is, because we've flown this with aerial contour surveys, and then all the mine maps for the Caribou, the Cross Mine, the Boulder County are in this program. Then every vein we've hit core drilling is in the program. And you can say, hey Tom, I want to look at all the core intercepts that are 5 feet or wider that average a half an ounce of gold. put that in red, and the technician sits there and programs that in. Pretty soon, all the veins pop up that run a half an ounce or better, that are 5 feet wide in the whole Caribou district. It's space age technology.
Are you the only mine in Boulder County that's using
Oh,
this?
yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
wondering in all of the Front Range here, what?
The only other company I know that uses it is the Hendricks mine over at Empire and the Anglo Gold mine down at Cripple Creek. Yeah.
Yeah, well, if they're set up in business, somebody else must be using.
Oh, worldwide, they have a huge following. You got to remember, when I first started mining here in the early 70s, a lot of the mine maps I made were on the back of a Safeway bag, which I draw up at night in my little cabin by candlelight.
I hope you still have those.
Oh, I do. I keep everything, yeah. And but we also have sponsored 5 graduate students, 3 at the University of Colorado and 2 at the School of Mines, to do their master's thesis on the Cross Mine. So throughout the late 70s and 80s and early 90s, we had 5 different students do their master's thesis on these mines.
Now, did you get some valuable information
Oh, yeah,
from that?
absolutely. Yeah, you bet.
Well, you've been throwing out some pretty high dollar figures, Tom.
Oh.
You started out on your own, didn't you?
When I first went to California to lease this mine in 1972, I charged it on a gold Visa card. I didn't have one dime to my name. I was living from paycheck to paycheck. And I tried to convince the family that were the descendants of this old mining ranching family from California that at age 22 I could open a gold mine and make it work. And the first year they said, oh, come back in a few years, that you're a little young to be doing this. And I kept hammering them. And in 1974 they gave me a 15-year lease on this mine. So I quit work at the Comstock and immediately started opening this with a pick and a shovel and a wheelbarrow. And I still have that wheelbarrow. And I have all the pictures to show that. And I didn't even know what the price of gold was. I just knew that I wanted to open my own gold mine. Then I teamed up with a Denver industrialist by the name of Jack LaFollette. And he knew the Caribou operation during the 40s. And he was making all the bottles for Coors beer.
I know, Jack.
Yeah. And Jack said, kid, I know that Caribou area. He said, tell you what, you go in there and see my comptroller and tell him you want $2,500 a month to open this little mine with, and see where you get to. So I had $2,500 a month to buy dynamite, mine machinery. So I worked here for 2 years by myself and started reopening the mine, timbering cave-ins and driving tunnels and stuff. Then I hired my first employee in 1976. And then gold prices started moving up because President Nixon signed the Gold Ownership Act, so American citizens could buy, sell, and trade gold. And then the bunker hunt tried to corner the silver market. Well, we acquired the Boulder Mill in 1976 and got it up and running, and I was shipping little tiny amounts of ore down there. And I had 7 people working there, but then all of a sudden gold and silver skyrocketed in the fall of 79. And I started adding more people on, we increased production, and lo and behold, gold hit $800 an ounce in January of 1980. We were in production. So we were shipping to the smelter, and a few checks were coming back, and I was borrowing from Bank One. If you go back to the First National Bank, Affiliated National Bank, and Bank One, they financed me through some of the craziest times. And I always used to go into Bert Sternholm down there, and Bert would look at me and he said, I know you need more money. And I'd say, yeah, Bert, but my word's as good as gold. And the bank would write another loan for me, and then I'd make a shipment and pay it down. And I think we did that 20 or 25 times, different loans that I had. And then 1980 came along, and a very famous Denver real estate tycoon that was friends of Bunker Hunt, his secretary came up and gave me an envelope, and it was an all-expense-paid first-class trip to Acapulco. And here I was mining. I came out of the mine and I got this envelope. And a week later, I'm in a suite down in Acapulco meeting some of Bunker Hunt's people. And they said, silver is going to go to $80 an ounce, and you have the Caribou Silver Mine up there, and we want to get involved. And so Ken Good did, and at the time he was trying to take over the oil shale company, Tosco, and Exxon was going to go in there and develop the oil shale. Well, one day we woke up and it said, Exxon pulls out a colony project, and their stock went from $27 to $7. And my partner called me up and he said, Tom, I'm broke. And he had $55 million when I met him. And our deal was just like a sideline. And he lost something like $70 million in the oil shale deal when they pulled out. So he was broke, and he said, you're going to have to take the whole thing back over, pay your crew up, and close her down. So I did, and then I went back into production myself with just 2 people. And we produced again. It was kind of a boom and bust cycle. And we got into production again, and so I've been through that now for 31 years, where it's just been like this. Big rewards briefly, and then huge debt, but still holding on to it. So the one thing we've done now is consolidated the whole Caribou district. We have all the principal mines. We've paid them off. We've borrowed heavily again, but we're holding on to them. And then in 1998, I merged with a public company. And 1 year later, they appointed me as president and CEO. So I'm one of these presidents and CEOs who, like this morning, I was in the mine cleaning the tracks up. I was working on an international finance deal in Switzerland at noon. I hauled the trash down at 1:30. I had shareholders calling from around the world. And then this afternoon, I've got a mechanical thing to fix here. So that's my typical day. Yeah. So.
How has the actual mining, getting the minerals out, changed in the years that you've been working this mine?
Oh boy! Well, in the old days, when people used the single jacks, where they drilled by hand and lit their way with a candlelight, today, for $275,000, you can buy a little rubber tire drill that has a totally enclosed cab that's heated, air conditioned. It has a computer disk, and when you drive a tunnel, you drill a pattern of holes so that the center ones you dynamite first, and then the next holes go off, and then finally the furthest holes go off. You can drop a disc in that thing, and the outriggers go out and they drill 12-foot holes instead of 6-inch holes. It took all day to drill. They can drill 25 holes in a matter of 45 minutes. The machine just demobes itself, pulls over, and drills another area. So one person operating one machine could drill 10 headings in one day.
And you have that equipment in this?
Well, we don't have it yet. It's our new Millennium mine.
Okay.
But no, we drill with jackleg drills, like you see there, which are very physically demanding. They're loud, and you're in closed areas, and they run at 140 decibels, and that's why my hearing's so bad, because I think I figured the other day I've drilled 50 or 60,000 holes with those jackleg drills. And we use a track-driven mucking machine called an IMCO 12B.
Called a what?
IMCO 12B, and it scoops a rock up and shoots it over into the cars, and then we haul it out by train. Our new mine won't have trains at all. It'll be all little rubber-tired trucks, and because today the cost of labor and the cost of all the compliance with everything, you have to use equipment to substitute for manpower or woman power.
So how many people are working in your mine now?
I'm the only one here right now.
You are?
Yeah, but I'm also managing, we have a 4 square mile gold mine in Nevada now that we've acquired and cleaned up. I've made 5 trips out there in the last 6 months, right next to one of the biggest gold mines in Nevada. And then I got onto a 61,000 acre gold mine in Panama, and it's the first property where Christopher Columbus dropped his anchor during his 4th and final visit to the New World, and he found gold there, and he shipped the gold back to Spain. And then the Spaniards came over with 2,000 black slaves, and they worked this property for 158 years, from 1518 into the 1700s. And they produced all of the original gold that went to Spain before the big mines in South America. And we got involved in this mine through a family in Colorado Springs that my brother and I went to high school with, one of the boys. And it's in a very remote part of Panama. And the way I'd liken it would be to Caribou before 1869. Gold's been coming out in the rivers and the riverbeds, but nobody's ever gone in to find out where the gold's coming from. So it's like this 18th century property in 2001 or 2002.
And you've acquired this?
Oh yeah, I was down there working last year. The only way to get there is on the ocean by boat or by helicopter. And we're planning to do a very small scale reconnaissance program down there to look for the mother lode. So I've gone from a pick and shovel to a public company with 1,400 shareholders worldwide. We've consolidated Caribou, we've consolidated Nevada, and we've consolidated a great big property in Panama.
Is this under Calais?
Yeah, Calais Resources, just like Calais, France. And we have a website, and it's not updated, it should be, and we have, we're a public company, and we're pretty actively followed. We trade here in the United States, and gold prices are moving up, so we've gone, historically we reached a high of $21 in 1996 a share, and a couple of years ago we were at 6 cents, and today we're trading at 60 cents with very little volume. So I think as gold's moving up, people are starting to realize that we really have something.
Seeing you sitting there with the hammer and a spike, you are a rock drilling contestant at the Netherlands.
Oh yeah, yeah.
What is it, the Netherlands?
It's the Old Timers Miners Days.
Yeah.
This will be my 30th year of setting up the contests, and those contests take place 2 weeks from now. And on Friday night at the Pioneer Inn, we have an arm wrestling contest, which is pretty grueling. And then Saturday morning, we have a bow sawing contest, where you have to pick a saw up and saw through a mine timber and put the saw back down. Then we have spike driving, where you pick up 2 mine spikes. You have to drive them in next to mine rail, right down as tight as you can, and come back. And then we have a hand mucking contest, where you shovel the ore into a 1-ton car, push it down, push it back, and dump it. And then on Sunday we have kids events, kids mucking contest, sawdust pile, and then at noon on Sunday the 28th we have hand drilling. And you have 7 steels, and you got 5 minutes, and you drill into a piece of Boulder Creek granite. And I feel pretty good, because at age 50 2 years ago, I took all around miners, so I felt pretty good about that. So, and we have a lot of women and kids that participate in the events and stuff like that.
Yeah, all of those events?
Yeah, oh yeah. And people ask me about women in the mines. I've had 8 women work up here in the mines for us. In 1980, I had a crew of 51 people on my payroll, and 7 of those were women. We had a woman that actually was a mill manager down in Boulder for 8 years. And we've had women work in every part of our operation. And out of 8 geologists, 4 of those geologists were women, so, yeah.
Could we take a look in your
Oh, in the
mine?
portal? Yeah.
Yeah.
We can look down the portal, sure.
Okay.
Yeah, just a little ways, and yeah.
I'm zooming.
Can you still see them? First of all, Tom, how far back does this?
This is our tunnel level across Gold Mine, and the structure you see right there is a snow shed. The winds blow the snow all winter long, and they drift 80 feet over the top of the mine. So we have a snow shed for about 150 feet. Then we actually hit the hard ground, and we go in 1,700 feet. We discovered a new vein under the Caribou Town site, which we named the Apache vein, and we go all the way underneath the old Caribou Town site for 1,700 feet.
Do you work all winter? Work this mine all
We
winter?
prefer to work in the winter because, as you can tell, the temperature in the mine during the summer is 36 degrees Fahrenheit. So when you come outside, it's very warm. In the wintertime, it's still 36, but it might be 10 outside. So it feels a lot warmer. And at this time of the year, we get a lot of water dripping in the mine. So it's ice cold water and it's wet. Where in the winter, it's very dry. Yeah.
Could you explain what this is behind you here?
Well, this is a tag board, and all mines have these. So when I go in the mine, I put my tag up on the top that says in, and when I come out, I put it out. Now, when we do tour groups, we might have 20 people that go in the mine. So I put like 15 and 5 up, and then I count everybody when they come back through the door. And in 30 years of doing 36,000 people in the mine, we've only lost a couple in there. So,
Have you had any accidents?
we've had very few accidents. We maintain very rigid safety standards up here. This unit that I'm wearing on my belt is called a self-rescue unit, and in case you get carbon monoxide poisoning from dynamite, we're trained to use this. You pop it off, clip your nose, and breathe through it, and it converts carbon monoxide to carbon dioxide. And the only accident we ever had here was an employee went down to his working and didn't turn the fan on, which he was trained to do. Started working, and his coworker said, "Hey, we got to get out of here. This air is bad." So the one put on his rescuer, and the other, "Oh," he said, "I'm not doing that." And he lit a cigarette up and started working, and he just ingested a massive dose of carbon monoxide. And that was the only accident we ever had, and that was in 1980. And the guy had 40 hours of training on how to use this. He just didn't use it. Mm-hmm. And so that was a serious accident for us. But other than that, we haven't. No.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I guess. Okay.
This is a jackleg drill, which we use to drill holes in the mine. We use tungsten carbide drill bits that look like this, and anywhere from 2-foot to 6-foot drill steels. And these are a very noisy, loud machine. It's part of why I don't hear that well. But they, compared to hand drilling, they're revolutionary. Compared to what's available today, they're primitive.
I know you've been very involved civically in Nederland and throughout the county. You've been involved in the formation of the Nederland Mining Museum.
I was in the early years very much involved with that. It got taken over by Danny Martin and Kayla Evans and some of those people. My problem is time. Sometimes I've, in the past, spent huge amounts of time on volunteer projects, particularly on weekends and at nights and things. Lately, I've been up here about 50 to 60 hours a week. When the company slows down, my work increases. And then I've been building my house over at the Smuggler Mine in above Moon Gulch over in Rollinsville. And so, though I was instrumental in the Mining Museum at the beginning, I haven't had a lot of time to work on it. But I still serve on the board, and I was at the meeting Thursday night, and certainly will help as any way I can in the future on that. I got involved I took over the presidency of the Boulder County Metal Mining Association way back in 1976 from George Vranish down in Boulder. And at that time we had 5 members. And this was an old organization. And we increased the membership of that up to 150 members. And we used to have an annual dinner in Boulder that we had all kinds of mining skits and interesting speakers, and we had hundreds of people show up for the meetings. And then I also took over the small mining directorship of the Colorado Mining Association. And in doing that for 15 years, I held small miner meetings throughout all the mining towns of Colorado. And that culminated every year with a big meeting in Silverton. And I put that on in Silverton for 9 years, and we had senators and environmentalists and the EPA and all these people come and speak, as well as miners. And it was trying to encourage and stimulate mining in Colorado. And the opposite happened. The environmental laws got so rigid you couldn't comply with them. Urbanization took over all our mining communities, and a whole generation of miners was gone. The ones that were up in their 80s were getting to be too old to work the mines, and the ones that were, their descendants were too smart to work the mines. So they went on and got jobs in the other world, and so there wasn't much left. And now I kind of lost all interest in that. I went all out on it for about 20 years, 25 years, and I felt like our whole industry's been done away with, like this traditional Western industry. And the sad part is that there's probably more gold, or 5 times the amount of gold in Colorado than there was in the old days. But it's going to be so hard to get to it. And so about 5 years ago, a funny thing happened. I met my wife. That changed my whole life. Now I have a daughter, and I'm building a house, and in addition to all the work up here and in Panama and Nevada, I haven't had time for anything. But the museum in Nederland is a great thing, and the county was wonderful in donating that building to us. And I just learned a week ago that the Imel family that operated the distributing company out at Lafayette, they had the property adjacent to the mining museum. And we had been negotiating with them, particularly Danny Martin had for years, to acquire that additional piece. So Scott Bunchen and Danny and Kayla went down to the meeting last week, and they started off the meeting thinking it was going to go on for hours. And the Imel said, well, we've come to a decision on that additional property for the museum. We're going to donate it to you. So they're going to donate that extra property to the museum.
Where is it in relation to the museum?
It's just to the west. It's that little white building there in that corner lot. That's going to really help the mining museum a lot. So there's been some wonderful people like that that have come forward.
Have you donated any equipment or anything down there?
Equipment and some expertise, and as it gets going, I'll get more involved with it. But Danny Martin sort of took my position, and he's had the time and the energy that he could do that right now, and he's been wonderful with that.
Now, who is Danny Martin?
He's from New Jersey. He and his wife moved here a few years ago, and they were in the antique business, but they got fascinated by Colorado history. And I have to give him a lot of credit for, he reminds me of myself 30 years ago, in that I was so captivated by the actual gold mining. He's captivated by the history of it, and he's doing a wonderful job with that. Yeah.
So what's the status then of the Boulder County Metal Mining Association?
Well, I sent in my resignation after being president for 25 years to John Henderson, the local mining attorney in Boulder and close friend of mine, but nobody ever seems to accept it. And some of the key people that we had in the organization didn't take it over, so it's sort of just laying there. I don't know what to do with it. I think I might call a meeting after, we haven't had any meetings in about 5 years, but I think I'll call a meeting just so I can resign and somebody else can take over as president. So, but it's an old organization. Yeah.
Well, I think, thank you, Tom, very much for this interview. I think I would ask you to sum up by asking you what you envision for the future of metal mining in this county.
Well, I think areas like, I hope Mark Steen can get the cash mine up and running, and he sold a lot of his property at Gold Hill to Boulder County. But he did keep the mill and the mines. There's real potential there. There's a couple of small mines that I think are not right in somebody's backyard that could be opened up. Here at Caribou, we have big plans. I've been here 31 years nonstop, and I hope I have 31 more years up here. And these will be the years where we'll actually go to permitting for a new shaft, a new mill, a new environmental system, and we would have enough ore to run at the rate of about 200 to 500 tons a day for a 25-year period. And that would make a major impact on the economy of Nederland Boulder. But it would also set an example as a new millennium environmental mine that shows that both mining and the environment can go hand in hand. And that goes from everything from water quality, underground tailings disposal, taking all the high quality waste rock and making aggregate for the people in Nederland and for Boulder and all the mountain roads, to carpooling, recycling, showing that both can work hand in hand. And I think at that point we'll employ about 70 people and generate a gross sales that will be very substantial. And we'll keep the tradition alive, but it's going to be a very capital intense thing. It's going to be a lot of meetings. And rather than fight the environmental groups, before we even start, I'm going to invite the Sierra Club and Roger Flynn from the Mining Coalition in Boulder, all the hot spots of environmental activism. I'm going to invite them to serve on our advisory board and let them listen to what we have and let them tell us what they'd like to see, and then blend those things together and make it work. I think that's the way to do it.
Good luck.
Yeah.
That sounds exciting.
Thank you.
We've driven on up the road toward Caribou from the Cross Mine, and this is an overlook. In the foreground is the Caribou Mine, and on beyond is Tom Hendricks' Cross Mine, to get an idea of how many buildings are in that complex. The buildings to the furthest from the camera are two cabins, one of which Tom lived in for several years while working this mine.